Hi, in this video I'm going to talk about how to make a scatter plot in Excel. And now a scatter plot is just a plot of points, and it makes it easy to see what your data is doing. Okay, in this first example I have farm and average daily gain. So to explain a little bit more, there's 32 farms and I've measured the average daily gain of each. And now they just happen to be in ascending order, meaning getting larger, but you would not necessarily have to enter your data that way. So please keep in mind, I've done it this way so we can kind of see the trend, but you don't have to necessarily have these in order. And I'm going to show you a different scatter plot in a minute, but what I want you to know is sometimes these values have meaning and sometimes they're just labels. So in this example, farm 1 would just be a label. It's not the number 1 producing farm, that would be this guy, but it is just farm 1. And if you had another reference key, you might know that farm 1 is on Elm Street or whatever, but if you don't, then these are just IDs. They don't really mean anything. Okay, so you want to keep in mind, does this mean something or is it just an identification? In this first example, the farm number is just an identification. All right, so the way that we insert a scatter plot is we highlight our data. I'm just using my mouse to highlight all the data I want to include in the scatter plot. Okay, and so I just drugged it. Notice that now it is gray. And I just click on Insert, and then I'm going to look over here to the charts. Okay, remember that I said a scatter plot is just a plot of points. So we're going to look for the one that looks like a scatter plot, and it's this one. Do you see the points there? And you can now see that when I put my mouse on top of it, it says Insert Scatter. You need both an X and a Y, so that's why we include this ID. So I am just going to select the first thing, the scatter here, okay, and now I've inserted my scatter plot. Okay, so this is a scatter plot. It's just a plot of points, and now I can see my data that really it ranges from here to here. But what you'd be looking for is maybe your highest, your lowest. Again, if they're in order, it's one thing. If they're not in order, it'll look totally different. It'll look like what we call buckshot, like all over the place. And I'm looking for gaps. Like, for example, here, there were no performers in here, and those types of things. Okay, now while this chart looks nice, there's a few things I want you to notice. Excel is famous for not starting their y-axis. This is the y-axis, this is the x-axis at 0, so it will always make your data look skewed. Okay, so we may want to edit that. If I double click on that, you can see here it says start at 0.29, go to there. So I'm just going to start it at 0, okay? And when I do that, you can see that there's not as much variability as it looks when we don't start it at 0, okay? Which is, it's more correct to present data starting at 0, but obviously you can see from the graph before, it gives you a better shot of your example of your data if you start it somewhere else. All right, so the main thing I want to do, it doesn't matter to me if this starts at 0 or something else, but I want to show you how to label your axis because we know what these things are. These is the farm number and this is the average daily gain. But if I take this out of this spreadsheet, nobody else is going to know what it is. So what I want to do is make sure I'm clicked on the chart itself. Okay, so now I'm clicked in the workbook. Notice that I don't have that one tab up here at the top, but when I click on the chart itself, this chart tool appears and we are under design. And if we go over here to add chart element, you can see that I can add axis titles. Okay, so this is the y-axis, this is the x-axis. So I'm going to do primary horizontal, and notice that it puts a title here. And now I can just change this to farm number. Okay, and now repeating the process, make sure you're clicked on the chart itself, go to add chart element, axis title, and now I'm going to do the vertical. And now this is where we can label our vertical axis as well. Average. I don't know why it's doing that. All right, daily gain. I could do 80G. And then it's always a good idea to put your units, pounds per day. Okay. Right, and so now everything's labeled. And if I wanted to, I could say, I knew down here because it's labeled 2017 performance or something. I can label the entire chart. Okay. Now we're going to repeat this process to make sure that you have it. But notice here, like I said, farm number is just like an ID. Okay. I'm going to show you an example where it might have meaning along the bottom, along the x-axis. So if I click on my growth chart, what I did in this example is now, and notice here you can exit out of there, I have weeks of age. Okay, so this is at the end of the first week. What should the animals weigh? Well, they should weigh 0.37 pounds. Okay, at the end of 18 weeks, they're going to weigh 42 pounds. So now this has meaning because this is time. I know that 1 is 1 week, 6 is 6 weeks. So it makes sense that they are in this order. All right. And so now let's repeat the process. I'm going to highlight my data, do insert, and now we're going to go to the chart section and look for that scatter. Yours might be in a different spot. There's a drop down next to scatter and just hit the points. Okay, I'm not sure what it did there, but now I can see. I had talked about this in a previous video. Make sure you double check your data, and I did not. So this should be 32.86, and now it's going to make my chart make sense. Okay, so always make sure that you proof your data, and when it looks funny like that, go back and look. Okay, so now that I have that, you can see that this is trending up, and now we want to repeat the process. I can change my chart title, growth of turkeys. Okay, label it anything I want. But now if I want to insert those axis titles, notice when I'm clicked on the chart itself, I can do design and then add chart feature. Horizontal is going to be weeks of age. Okay. And then again, I can add chart title, no, chart axis title, sorry, besides, and this is going to be body weight, and then I would put pounds. Okay, so now this has meaning, and this is going to become more important, that whether this has meaning or not later on, probably towards the end of class. But for now, remember there's two different things to do. Number one, does this have meaning? In other words, in this case, it's increasing its weeks of age, or does it not really? This is farms, and we can think about this as the rank of the farm, but it doesn't really have meaning in terms of anything like weeks or those types of things. Another example would be if I had days of the month and temperature, it would be all over the place, but days of the month increase in temperature would be all over. So that would be another example where it would maybe have meaning down here. All right. All right, so I've shown you how to do a scatter, and again, the main part is to summarize. Highlight your data, insert, look for the scatter, and then select the one with the points. And then from there, you're going to want to label your axis by clicking on the chart, going to Chart Tools, Design, and then Add Chart Element. And you can see over here, Axis Title. You'll have to repeat the process, one for primary and one for vertical. Okay? So, all right. If you have questions, please let me know.